How's everybody doing? I heard this has been a fantastic weekend. You guys are just coming off of lunch though, huh?
Yeah.
So are we feeling sleepy? Do you have the itis? I mean, I know how that is. It's a very real thing. And I would feel remiss if I didn't at least give you guys a little some football. Because one reason why I love to open up football to women and girls is because when I started playing, the thing I heard about it is it was the final frontier for women in sports. And I kind of felt like, okay, so if we can do this, then that means there's nothing we can't do, right? Like that was my passion. It's not all about like football to me. It's about the empowerment that you get by breaking the rules, right? I used to think that the goal was moving the chains, right? Because that's what we do in football. We measure progress 10 yards at a time. We talk about moving the chains. One of the biggest visible things you see on the football field, everybody knows it. 1st and 10, do it again. Boom, boom, boom. Move those chains, move those chains. And then I thought about it one day. I was like, I don't want to freaking move the chains. I want to break the chains. Like, think about it. Because if you're moving the chains, then you're playing by somebody else's rules. When you decide that maybe, just maybe, the rules are meant to be broken because nobody's written the rules with us included as women in the past, that's when the potential gets really freaking exciting to me, right? So I challenge you that first and foremost when you're looking at the things that you're all going into. I love the age that you're in, right? This is an age of possibility. Look at the Parkland students, right? Oh, you're too young to make a difference. You're too this, you're too that. Forget that. I'm going to use one of my favorite phrases from that. I call BS. Because if they taught us anything, it's that by using your passion and owning your platform and realizing that there's never been a time like this to change things, then all of you become a very viable, very awesome, very hard to handle, unchained force to be reckoned with. Right? So that's what I want you to think of. Because I tell everybody, okay, the goal of being the first is cool. But the goal of being the first is to ensure that you're not the last. That was always my driving factor. I never wanted to be the one that they said, oh, well, we had a girl once, but. That I was the reason that they could use for closing the door tighter than it had even been before I got there. So for all of you, as you're looking to change whatever it is, in whatever that field of dreams of yours is, as you go forward, challenge yourself on that. To go in, kick butt, and ensure that you're opening doors for people that weren't previously there. Because if it's you by yourself, you're being selfish. And not in a selfish way that benefits everybody. You have to look to be bigger, right? You have to look to push harder. So I'm going to give you a little football attitude, okay? So stand up. I need you all to stand up with me. I know. Okay, so in football, on offense, they know exactly what they're doing, right? They get a route, 2 steps, turn, boom. Defense, not the same. Defense, we have to read and react. So part of my job on defense was to get in everybody's head. I have a doctorate in psychology, happen to be one of the best athletes in the world. My job is to mess with minds for a living. So I look at defense as this opportunity to set the tone every time I step on the field. So for all of you, as you go into any meeting or any area of life, remember, you are the narrator. You're the narrator, editor, director, producer of your own life. And you set the tone every time you go in somewhere with everything that you do. So on defense, I was a linebacker, since we had to do a little bit of both, right? So I'm going to teach all of you a perfect linebacker stance, right? So you have to have a strong base. That's the first part. Strong base means you're a little bit more than shoulder width apart. As I say, 2 steps of attitude. You know, like 2 steps, 2 steps, 2 steps. So we're right here, boom, boom, 2 steps of attitude. Set the tone, right? If you're too wide, if you're too close, you can be easily knocked over. You have to take a stand, and when you do, you have to be strong in your stance. So we start with a strong stance. Good, solid base for everything that you want to do. Then I'm going to have you give a little bit of Superman. So we got a Superman, right like here. Stick your chest out, up and strong. Feel how you feel as soon as you embrace that. Feel the power in your stance, right? Do you feel the difference that just came over you as you did that? Superman, your chest is up, right? Now, leverage is important. If you're too high, you fly. Meaning if you're too straight up and down, you're too rigid, or your ego has kept you from being grounded, you're easily beaten, right? So the next thing you need to do is karate chop your hips. Boom, right here, sitting back. Yeah, I know dresses are tough, that's why I'm stretchy. Right? But you're over a seat, so every one of you can do it. Now, your hands are ready to go. That's a perfect linebacker stance every time. You can move any direction, and you can tackle anything, right? So I want you guys to feel a little bit of that attitude and that willingness to be able to go out and tackle anything from today. Can you guys do that for me? Okay, go ahead and take a seat now that you have your football swag for the day. The linebacker attitude. But you see, it's all about the mood that you set, the tone that you set, and to realize on defense, I looked at it this way. They have a route to run, right? It's very robotic. They know what it is. If they're thinking about that, they're winning. If they're worried about me, they're not going to do what they have to do there. So remember that your competition, when you're in their head, you can own them. But you get to set the tone for who you are in every situation. Every time you take the field, whatever field that is, you get to determine the tone in everything that you do. From the first handshake that you have, from the eye contact that you make, from what you wear. Frankly, I like my sneakers. It allows me to run around, right? But I know myself that way. If I'm in heels, it's about a 1 hour window. And I have my chain shoes in my purse, right? Because I don't want to be cranky. I want to be able to run around. I'll look good, and I'll also have my sneakers somewhere close by. Maybe sandals, depending on how big the purse is, right? But that's what I want you guys to realize, right? There's so many things that people will tell you what's not possible. Guess what? At 5'2", yes, that's my top height. I was never told that I would be one of the best football players in the world one day. Newsflash, it never happened. In fact, I was constantly told what I couldn't, shouldn't, and wouldn't do. Thankfully, what I didn't do was listen, right? Because there will always be those people who have scar tissue on their heart, on their dreams, on their lives, right? And their advice, though maybe well-intentioned, is coming from a place of pain, a place of disappointment, a place of dreams that once were there for them, that for one reason or another, they didn't accomplish, had to get away from, or just sold and lost along the way. So remember that though you can take the advice, if it's worth it, don't let somebody else's scar tissue determine your potential. Because I can promise you, if I would have listened to that, I would never have made it to where I am. My first love was tennis. I wanted to be a professional tennis player, and I was really good. I was ranked about 50 in the state of Florida at one time. I had not yet reached my top height of 5'2". I was a scrawny little thing, like little tiny little beanpole, right? And I used to go in these matches and I believed I could beat anybody. To characterize, though, I would tell you about one that I went on, and it was team tennis. We were at States playing team tennis, and I would walk on, and this girl was giant, well, relative to me. She was probably like 5'10". And she looks down at me, and she said, "I hate to break it to you, little girl, but I think I'm going to crush you." And I just kind of looked at her, and I was like, After I beat her, I went up to her, and I was like, "I hate to break it to you, big girl, but I think I just crushed you." Right? I knew I was small, so I wasn't going to talk smack beforehand, but I let my play do my talking for me. It wasn't until I went to go to the next level of my sport that I came up with a coach who said, because of my size and my build, I was wasting my time. And I would never be strong enough to play pro tennis. Funny, I think about that guy often. I kind of want to go up to him and be like, "You know what, coach, I think you were right. I'd never be strong enough to play pro tennis. I played pro football instead." But I tell you guys that because you will hear those things. Anybody who says you're not going to have those moments in your life isn't trying to do anything epic. Okay? If they could see what you saw, they would have already done it. That's how you change the game. You see things that nobody else has seen yet, or you put it together in a slightly different way, or you put your head down and you're so passionate about what it is that you love that it doesn't matter. The hours fly away. You work harder, not because somebody put you on a time clock, but because you're so in love with what you're doing. That's where greatness comes from. If you want to be great in this world, you have to follow your passion, not a paycheck. Because through your passion, through real, intense love of what you're doing, in whatever that is, you will work so hard. You will be so good. You will do epic things that everybody said was impossible. And then eventually, money will come. But if you just start with money in mind, you're going to sell out like most people do. And those people are the ones who have a midlife crisis. Right? See the guy with the comb over and the car and the man tan, maybe even a little mascara. Like he's trying really hard to get it back. Because he left that. When you start with your love in mind, you don't have to get to that point because you've been living that best life. Right? But that means you have to challenge things. That means you have to take a stance. That means you have to be willing to use your voice, use your talents, develop things that other people aren't doing. For me, I stopped playing tennis. It wasn't like I threw my racket down and quit that day. I just wasn't the same about it. If it wasn't possible at all, it was kind of like, eh. But one thing I did do is start lifting weights because I was determined to never have anybody tell me I'd never be strong enough again. And so here I was, this little kid who didn't even know what I was doing, but I'm in the weight room. And this was before girls were in the weight room. I was by myself, but I was like, you know what? I'm never going to have anybody tell me I'm not strong enough again. And when you work with that in mind, then opportunities will come into your life that maybe you didn't foresee. I can promise you one thing. I didn't start playing football with the NFL in mind. The NFL was the no female league. There was no one I could look at and say, I want to be her when I grow up. So that was never a goal I could set. I remember when I got to the NFL, people would say it all the time. They'd be like, oh, you're living the dream. You're coaching in the NFL. And I'd be like, actually, no. This was a dream I was never permitted to have because there was no one I could look at and say, I want to be her when I grow up. But the beauty of this is that now any little girl can grow up with that dream. And that's what changing the game is about. It's giving people permission to dream of things that were off limits. There were no-goes, no females allowed, or whatever diversity whatever minority that you're talking about in any space. Because when somebody can look and say, she's like me, then she can see herself in your eyes. She can see yourself walking in your footsteps. You give people permission to dream through everything that you do. Whether you're the first one to go to college, the first one to do this, the first one to do that. It doesn't have to be a national platform to give permission to break the rules.